the gentrification was real, right? It was real in attracting 100,000 new residents. The reality is that coincided with the displacement of, some people say 20,000 black people, and others say that's a conservative estimate of how many black people were displaced. You think about programs, the federal government like Hope 6, some of the development, people never came back, right? I am reminded of that, both in the work that I did as a council member and why I'm running for mayor, right? It is a fight to deliver a city that works for more people, that works for those folks who are vulnerable, who works for those folks who, over that time period, did not enjoy the prosperity that many people got, who felt like the buildings being built downtown weren't for them. It was for the new people, right? And so the future prosperity of the District of Columbia has to be inclusive. And that's not just a buzzword for me. It's not a campaign slogan. I've spent my time on the council fighting to make this city more racially equitable, more socially just, and more economically inclusive. And I put policies in place to try to change the odds for people in this city who need the help the most. It is not to pit Ward 3 against Ward 8, because I don't think you need to do that.
Right.
It is thinking about ways to use government to grow the proverbial pie so that everybody can get a slice. Just recognizing that equity means everybody doesn't get the same thing. You get what you need. In certain communities, they need less from government. They need the trash picked up on time. They need the rats away from the stores and the homes. They need the snow plowed. But in other communities, they need a housing voucher, right? They need support through entitlement programs, and that's okay. How do we give them what they need through a strong social safety net?
Yeah.
But also give them a hand up out of poverty, right? And I think that's what government can do, and that's what I've worked to do as a council member. That's what I would do as mayor, because that time frame where we saw the turnaround in our economy, we saw our budget increase, we saw more than 100,000 new residents come to the district and buildings get built downtown.
Yeah.
It filled our coffers with revenues, and it allowed us to provide a strong social safety net. But in the same regard, you have to ask the question, who benefited?
Right. Can you, I feel like the average person watching sometimes doesn't even know like the difference that DC versus a New York City, for example. Like New York City can get bailed out by like Albany, whereas DC is in a unique situation where, we rely on the federal government and we have this crazy, toxic relationship with whoever's in office. And right now is Donald Trump. And so there's a lot of I feel like there's a lot of talking points. There's a lot of people saying, oh, like we're not doing enough, pushing back on Trump, but it's they kind of control a lot of the funding. Can you explain to the average person just in general how DC is different from New York City? Because I know Mamdani is in New York and he's doing a lot of stuff and getting money from Ali.
That's right. Just real quick, the DC up until the first mayor council government took office in January of 1975. Before that, there was a mayor council appointed by the federal government. And
oh, wow. I didn't know that.
When we got home rule in 1973 and the first mayor council took office in 1975, it ushered in this new generation of locally elected officials who were running DC government. And we have limited home rule, but yet we still are a byproduct of the United States Constitution, which means we're not New York City, we're not Chicago, we're not San Francisco, we're not LA. They have 2 US senators and congressional delegations that vote. We have the Constitution of the United States, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, that gives all authority over the District of Columbia to Congress, right? So our laws that we pass in DC still go to Congress, right? And they have the authority to overturn those laws. And for years they hadn't used the authority. But more recently, they have started to laser and focus on what the District of Columbia is doing locally and threaten to overturn things, to introduce bills, to change laws. And I think we are facing, I think most people agree, as a matter of fact, that Washington, D.C. is facing the greatest existential threat to home rule since we got it more than 50 years ago. Sure, it's Trump.
Yeah.
It is Trump. It's Trump nationally, globally, and locally.
Right.
Right? In terms of the threat to DC's well-being and livelihood, when you think about our Latino neighbors and the way that he has weaponized ICE, attempted to take over MPD, and having MPD and ICE and HSI coordinating, that makes us less safe.
Right.
Whether people want to admit it or not. And I know, not just because I read it in a book, because of my work that I've done on the council to transform policing and crime prevention through the NEAR Act. I know from being both a former prosecutor, but also being a former civil rights attorney in President Obama's Justice Department, where I traveled the country investigating police departments, offering technical assistance, and changing systems of unconstitutional policing. I know what justice looks like. I also know what injustice looks like from having been that teenager growing up in the district in the 80s and 90s and having been arrested in my own neighborhood when the federal law enforcement descended on neighborhoods like mine with MPD, when the National Guard was embedded in communities shining spotlights on drug corners. And so what I'm saying is the federal government, Congress specifically, has authority over the District of Columbia in the Constitution. And this president has particular, I think, political, how would I describe it? He has the ability to manipulate a Republican Congress in a way that I haven't seen and most people haven't seen.
Right.
And you have those members of Congress and the president saying and doing things that diminish the quality of life, I think, for Washingtonians today. And we got to be careful about that. We got to be strong to defend the rights of our immigrant neighbors.
But it's a challenge.
It is.
I mean, it's
Absolutely.
a challenge. It's a, there's a lot involved. It's not like a blanket statement where you can say, oh yeah, it's easy to push back. It's a very nuanced thing that you see on social media, a lot of like, well, Bowser didn't push back hard enough, or, and it's like, well, it's not that simple, right? I mean, a lot of the funding and
by no means is it simple, because we operate a government that is unique because of what I just described in terms of congressional authority, but also because, we are a city, but we also have the functions of a county and a state. Yeah. And so we have to be able to allow locally elected officials who know DC best manage this city and not have the congressional interference. But it is a delicate balance. My approach to this is that you work with the federal government where possible, where it benefits Washingtonians, where it benefits our small businesses, but you fight back like hell where necessary.
Of course.